Moses Matyayi, please take the podium.
Good morning. Thank you very much, the moderator. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge the panelists who are here today. And the question that I was given, or maybe as well as the audience, both watching on the digital platforms and present here. We have been given a presentation to explain how we would actually undertake business at the city of Windhoek. My presentation is going to be, I understand that it should be within 20 minutes. I'll try to streamline it within those few minutes. And definitely, I would juxtapose a lot of other interventions in there or operational issues that I would want to see. Definitely. My name is Moses Matyayi. I am an aspiring candidate for the city of Windhoek Chief Executive Officer's position. Seems to... Apologies, I think there is a challenge here.
You may want to use the...
Yes, all right. Thank you very much. I think that the presentation is provided in the following aspects as per the question that was provided. The first issues I would like to speak to are the short-term interventions that I would like to implement or look at during my 100 days. We'll then discuss the long-term issues or the long-term interventions, and those are driven or are composed on the three aspects that follows: the business process modeling, land delivery and housing, and most importantly, stakeholder relations. I think these are, for me, three very key issues that I would like to concentrate on. Just as a way of introduction, like I said, my name is Moses Matyayi. This is just to at least create a sense of understanding of who I am, for those that do not know me. I hold an MA or Masters of Arts in Human Resource Management, obtained from the London Metropolitan University in 2019. I also hold a BTech degree in Human Resource Management, majoring in Business Management and Human Resource Management, obtained from NUST in 2009. I have a combined work experience of 14 years, of which 12 years has been in executive role and in the local authority sector. I sit as a board chairperson of the one of the REDs within the country, that is the SENORED. I also am a board member at NBC. I am currently the president of NALAO, which is the National Association of Local Authority Officials. And currently I am the CEO of Windhoek Municipality. That is just to establish my level of leadership, my level of skills, competency, and qualifications, as well as my understanding of governance issues. My first 100 days, I think, coming into an institution, we should be able to understand that this institution has existed. And in its existence, there is currently a strategic plan that is in place. My first task that I would embark upon is to have the beginning of a transformational journey. The beginning of transformational journey will encompass internal organizational assessment for me to first and foremost understand the business processes, for me to understand the organizational culture, for me to understand policy and procedures, and a way of how business is conducted within the city. I think that would form a good assessment, as well as to create an understanding of our stakeholders. Within that, what it would mean, this strategic plan coming to an end in 2022, we will have to undertake an environmental scanning, and we will have to undertake a strategic review to look at how far we have actually come and how much we've achieved of those intentions that we have actually planned to achieve. So that will traject us into an area of us coming to developing a business or formulating a strategic business plan. That will then be followed by an institutional alignment, looking at structure, whether that can respond best to the institution and whether that will be able to deliver the strategic intention of the institution. And also to create, or to first and foremost establish the priorities that we would like to achieve from a level of leadership, a level of institution we want to lead, thus inspiring a culture of change and sense of agency, meaning there is definitely going to be a new way of how we will have to do things in one way or the other. The strategic intentions that I've touched upon is one of the issues that are currently very, very hot on Namibia's plate. The city of Windhoek being that institution and the only city in this country, it accommodates a diverse number of residents that comes from various areas. I'll give you a few statistics that I've just come around, basing it on the Namibia Statistics Agency census in 2011. The city of Windhoek was standing at a population of around 250,000. Fast forward to 2016, close to 395. So I just rounded it off to 400, which actually then means 400,000, which actually then means that going into the next years, the trajectory is that by 2040, the city will actually be hosting around about 800,000 residents. What does that mean? That necessarily means that if you look at the growth rate on an average basis, the city is actually growing by 15,000 people every year, or has been growing with about 15,000 on an annual basis. Going forward, it's almost the same trend. It will mean that the city will be developing around 15 to 16,000 people will be coming here. And we're not talking about just people coming, we're talking about people coming and settling. What I would like to look at first and foremost is that should inform us the nature and the agency of our response towards how we are going to deal with land delivery process and housing development. My intent will then be, understanding this, I would like to first and foremost use the resources that we currently have within the city, where we will then tell each other on an annual basis how much land must we actually plan at the end of the day. If there are 15,000 people coming here, how much of this population is active, how much of this population is not active, and within that sense, we can then be able to use facts and figures for us to be able to respond. If we say 10,000 of these are actually active, and when I mean active are members of the society who are ready to take up work in terms of economic terms, this will then have to respond to our response as a city. My intent would mean that, having understood the city, there are around about 8 town planners, and I believe all of those 8 are registered. And what I've looked at is that there are 4 town planners who are dealing with urban land planning only. The others are in urban land management, which is a different set of another issue. So I would like to look at, for example, to give you a face value understanding, to say if we will have to deliver to respond to the population increase, we can probably give each of these individuals around about an internal planning process. They are qualified individuals. They know what is land use planning. And we would like them to be able to plan for the city going forward as our internal consultant. We would like to give them a minimum of 1,000 plots to actually plan on, a minimum. And then the maximum can be between 2,500 to 3,500 so we can meet the target of VIP individuals coming in. We would also use external consultants to do planning because, of course, we will have to respond to the shock. So the residue that is left over within the minimum that we can be able to meet will then be able to be taken up by the colleagues who are external consultants. There is an issue of land servicing, infrastructure development. I would like to use that we would be using a multi-pronged approach and an integrated or streamlined approach going forward, where we would need government funding. We cannot, as a city, just have everything on our own. Government needs to come in because of the social aspect of things that we need to deal with. In that sense, we would plead, or we would be able to speak to government so they can come in to deal with social aspects. We will also take care of some of those. Private sector funding, we would look at private sector funding with predetermined conditions. What we're saying is we would like you to fund our land servicing infrastructure from the first word go. Usually you find banks that come here and they want to give you a loan for you to only build a house. But what we want to say is, if you are a bank and you want to do business with us, we start from the inset, from the beginning. You put money into the servicing, and then you can also fund the structure. Of course, that's a business for the bank. We've spoken about government funding for social housing. Of course, private-public partnership with conditions. The private-public partnership, in my sense, would be for the city to determine its rate. We have engineers here, we have quantity surveyors here. They can be able to quantify those aspects and inform our people to say, this is what it's going to cost to build this house. We'll give it to the bank and we'll tell you, this is our cost. You take it and you can put a small markup on there, not to make it very expensive for our residents. Of course, community-led project participatory programs, which I'm going to touch base in the following aspect. The next one that I will be looking at is the business process modeling. Of course, all of this will have to be dealt with within the concept of understanding the institutional framework and the establishments thereof. There's an issue of revenue optimization. How are we going to optimize our revenue? One of the issues that the council is actually facing, or the city of Windhoek is facing at the moment, is a skyrocketing debt or the behavior of payment by residents. We will have to now look at those trends and say, if the behavior is leading us into arrears, we want to actually just allow you to use what you can be able to afford. So we need to implement a smart prepaid water metering system rather than avoiding a conventional where you use and not know how much you can be, or a postpaid system. Debt reduction. My strategy in terms of reducing the debt stands at, I understand it stands at about $1 billion. I would like us to go intentional in our approach, in ensuring that we are going to, there is about 200,000 civil servants, and probably also a lot more in terms of the private sector employment. But we would like to go to government and tell them, for those residents within the city that have properties, we want a deduction code so that they can be able to be deducted from their salaries, and that money must come in and infuse some cash flow into our system. We would also like to engage intentionally to say, we would want to invoke, if you are in arrear, whether you like it or not, you will have to enter into a compulsory debit order with the city, because your behavior affects our way of doing business. So we will have to institute some of those aspects for us to actually improve cash flow and reduce debt and maintain it at that level. Risk-based planning, we would be looking at planning in terms of understanding our risks and shocks that actually affects our institutional framework from a micro level to a macro level within the city, because of course the city plays a major role greatly. What I would like to look into that as well in terms of process modeling is to inspire a performance management culture in the city. The city has adopted a performance management system. Based on my study and based on my review, I've been made to understand the report of 2018-2019 speaks about 53% achievement rate. As we speak right now, I am informed that there is about a 43% achievement rate of the last review quarter that was done. But we will have to reinforce that in order for us to make a change and impact. Employ a digital technology solution. I think this will be more of a customer convenience and also revenue generation or cash flow movement. One of my issues is that to look at ERP systems that will be intertwined in order, or look at the ones that are here. Are they working? Are they not working? Can they be able to deliver or not? But one aspect that I would like to work at is also instill loyalty within our clients, that they can be able to become loyal. We want them to make us a priority in terms of their payments rather than going to pay bears and whoever. We would like to introduce a mobile app. That mobile app would actually deliver you to a checkout where when you are applying for service, you don't need to come and pay cash. It can actually quickly just deduct. That is employing technology within the concept. So it's going to deliver us on a long-term basis. Reduce red tapes in application for services. Of course, your building plan approval. Of course, your application for water services. We would like to define a standard within which we are going to say, if you submit your building plan, it's going to last you, or it's going to be with us for about these days. And it must stay with this one or this department for these days up to that date. So these are some of the issues we'll be looking at. Of course, there are issues of infrastructure development that should respond to our mandate that we are delivering. I want to concentrate on a smart prepaid water metering system as a debt and revenue solution. Reduce cost of doing business through business process reengineering, as well as increase electricity supply, trading hours, and solar energy. At the moment, as we speak, having looked at the data of the city of Windhoek, we're one of the cheapest electricity distributor in the country. We are also one of the electricity distributor with the lowest level of electricity leakages that we actually have, or losses. You call them electricity losses. So at around 5.6%, that is beyond the levels of international standards. So we're good at that. We'll maintain that. But what we want to do is we want to infuse more energy, because the demand of the housing and everything else will require us to increase our capacity. So that would need us to increase. We would like to look at water reclamation plants to complement demand. Some of these projects are actually already planned for. However, they have not been effected. And I would like to look at some of those. Why? Past 2-3 years, we've had a drought situation in the city of Windhoek. And our water, we had to depend on our recharge schemes in order to make ends meet. Lastly, delivery of housing and provision. I think as a city, we will have to get intentional, we will have to get deliberate, and at the end of the day, we will have to put up housing developments that we can dictate as how it's going to be done. What I would like to look at is to invoke Section 57 up to 62 of the Local Authorities Act, which provides for the establishment of municipal housing funds, municipal housing schemes, and also loan schemes. We already have some, but I think we can create furthermore. What I also have learned is that we have a good upgrading or housing upgrading development policy in the city, and that needs to actually just be reinforced. So within that, we can touch base on various aspects of different sectors of the residents, those that can afford a high income level, middle income level, and low income level. At the level of informal settlement, I think this is where we can then bring in issues such as decentralized Build Together program. The conditions are there. All we need to do is just make sure that we enforce the process more rigorous and with determination. We would like to involve Namibia Housing Action Group, Development Workshop, Namibia Housing Enterprises, Private-Public Partnership. I believe there are interventions that were announced by the council just previously. Those interventions speak to some of these matters as a delivery process within the formalization of informal settlement. One thing I would also like to look at is introduction and also implementation of the flexible land tenure. It provides for that aspect.
Mr. Matyayi, please be conscious of time.
Thank you very
Can
much.
we get
I
to
think
your 5 years?
I'll be concluding to say I'll be looking at building stakeholders' relations. One of the aspects I want to look at as a last aspect is good corporate governance, aligning the council, all the leadership and the administration to understand, to uphold standards within our operations. This goes to ascribing ourselves to the NAM code, the King code of the day, just to ensure accountability, responsibility, and transparency within the organization. Stakeholder engagement, for us to create relations with various stakeholders. Brand establishment, that means private, government, civil society, as well as align our brand to a sustainable metropolitan city. That will look at SDGs. We aligning ourselves to the SDGs such that we can deliver on the smart city issues that are outlined there. Mentorship programs and opportunities for SME. As a city, I think we need to drive that process to mentor SMEs and promote locally produced, and I want to believe indigenously produced products that can be able to create an opportunity for a smaller SME to enter into a market that is dominated by the capitalist businessmen and women. Of course, private sector engagement is very key. Whatever we're going to do, they provide for employment with many of our people that stays in the very social aspect. But yes, those are areas that I think I want to cement, including the aspects of international relations so that we can benchmark on best practices that will be able to invoke a better relation with the city. These are aspects that I believe I would look at very determined to look at in my tenure if I become the CEO of the city of Windhoek. And members of the panel, Honorable Mayor, members of the audience, moderator, this is where my strategy intent ends. Thank you very much. I'll be willing to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moses Matyayi. Let's take questions from the panel. And can I just ask you to switch off that microphone, Mr. Matyayi? Let's start with Mr. Mayumbelo. If you have any questions. No questions, Mr. Mayumbelo? Advocate Walters? Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Just you put forward wonderful ideas, interventions, which will really take us from here into another dimension, to a new world, the city of Windhoek. But you know yourself, you are under the council's jurisdiction. You act under the council jurisdiction. How would you convince council to buy in to your ideas, your interventions?
Thank you very much, advocates. That's a very, very important question. I think the greatest equalizer in ensuring that there is synergy and symbiotic thinking within the organization is to understand our roles and responsibilities and functions. I think that would be very key. But what is more importantly also ensuring that governance, good corporate governance, is upheld at all levels within the organization. When we establish that, we can be able to know at what level are we able to go up to this level. So that will then tell us. My approach would be I would be willing to work at a relationship with the council because they are not independent of the institution. Neither are we independent of their direction. So it would mean that if council can understand first and foremost that all their plans and all their promises can only be transmitted through the institutional framework, I think they'll be able to support this institution to deliver on those mandates, then brought into a strategic plan, into annual plans, into individual plans that we can be able to then juxtapose against each other's needs and promises that we've made and expectations. I believe when we look at all those aspects, looking at governance and strategic intentions, we can be able to work at a relationship that speaks to all of our expectations and that of our stakeholder. That, I think, something I would like to work on in order to convince council to understand that this will have to be in a formal setup under specific standards, knowing where and how we actually relate to one another.
Thank you. Ms. Kali, any questions?
Yes, please. Thank you, Master Matyayi, for that thought-through presentation. Well done. My question to you, based on the interventions you will bring on board, as a CEO of a financial institution, housing a bank, one of the things is obviously to also mention that money the banks has are public money, are your money. I hear you mentioning that when it comes to housing delivery, for example, you will dictate how things will be done. Banks will come to you. Can you give me a practical example of what you think those interventions will be? How do you foresee things going to work, particularly where banks need to play a role? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Kali. I believe and understand still in a relational issue of our relations. What do you provide? What can we do? But where do you see a business opportunity as a bank? It's for us very, very critical. We are providing you land and you're providing us the money. But your money will not increase if we don't build houses, if we don't service land. But what we want you to do is let's agree at a point where you are going to say, my margin on top of, or let's say the cost of my money would not be too exorbitant enough in order for that to actually ripple effect into the consumer. The protection here must always be the consumer at the end of the day. What I can be able to introduce to you is one of the aspects that is being dealt with within the Otjiwarongo municipality, where the council and the government looked at a specific project tailored to the market that is more in need between the age of 25 to 36. That is where you find your most middle income earning individuals who are the most affected, who don't have housing actually. But we had gone through the process of understanding what is the cost of material for the brick, what is the cost of material for the zinc, and that brought about the input cost into the top structure. And what we are going to be saying is we want to give you this house. Here's our price. It's going to cost us to build this house for us, according to our engineering and quantity surveyors expertise. It's going to cost us 5,000 to build this house per square meter. The cost of money for those houses, we are going to build about 1,000 or 5,000. Your cost of money, we want you to reduce that because the margins on the economies of scale are going to be too much for you. You are going to lose money. You are going to earn money at a bigger scale rather than just having 1, 2, 3 houses that you have to build. So that is where we are going to dictate the price to the market so that the market can be able to respond to our price. And I'm sure when we do that intentionally, our clients would be the best benefactor at the end of the day. I think, if I would put it in that context, that would be an example that I can put through. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wiepa, any questions?
Yes, thank you, moderator, and thank you, Mr. Matyayi, for the presentation. I would like to, first of all, ask you a question on the financial sustainability of the city of Windhoek. All the things that you intend to do will obviously require funding. You indicated in the presentation that some of the interventions will probably be funded through engagements with the financial institutions. But I want you to enlighten us and the listeners as to what exactly are you going to do to ensure financial sustainability for the city of Windhoek. By this I mean, currently the city is operating on deficit. You will be coming in as CEO if you are successful And we would want things to move from the word go. What is it that you are going to do in terms of revenue mobilization to fund the activities that you are proposing? That is question one. Question two, on the issue of informal settlement upgrading. We all know this is a crisis. The president has declared a national crisis which needs to be addressed. And you will be the key person in assisting the council to address this issue. What exactly are you going to do? You have mentioned in the presentation that you will try to ensure that the planning division of the city of Windhoek starts to do the planning themselves, and whatever needs to be done through external consultants, you will then move to make use of the expertise outside. But primarily, you will start with the internal expertise. Now, with planning, that is okay. And I agree with you that that's the best approach to do. But then we have land that is occupied. We call it brownfields. Ideally, you should do planning on green fields. But now, with Windhoek situation, most of the land is occupied. What activities, what other activities apart from planning are you going to undertake or propose to council so that we start addressing this issue of informal settlements from the word go? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uyepa. Most definitely, I think I should be able to put a disclaimer to say, with all institutions or business operations, for a local authority, there is no one-size-fits-all solution type of a thing. Because our model of products that we offer to the clients are widespread in tangible and tangible services. What I would like to look at first and foremost, I think for me, that's why I said we would want to get intentional. And this is something that I've already done in my current employment. We needed to look at what is it that we will have to do as a council. There are myriad of issues. One, if private sector, government, residents believe that we must deliver on our promise, then they must start treating us as a priority as a council. That for me is very important. That will reduce your debt to revenue level for us. That is very key. We will have to communicate that message clearly to all our stakeholders, to all our clients that do business with us. Because without their support, we will not be able to make any debt. That's for me one important thing. Another aspect that I can be able to look at is what I outlined to say, okay, having looked at the debt levels of the municipality, it's an opportunity. There is 1 billion out there. It's $1 billion. If I can be able to recover at least a 50%, even if it's a 20% of that $1 billion, that's 200 million. It could be used or applied for something else. What would mean in this is we need to apply different areas for us to be able to collect. How are we going to collect? If you owe us, we are going to be intentional. Just like you are paying for your car, we also want you to pay the municipality. We're going to institute a compulsory debt deduction from your account. We will have to do that. I think Section 73 of the Local Authorities Act provides for us to recover everything that we need to recover. So there is definitely technicalities that will have to be worked in. That will bring in revenue. Definitely it's not going to be quick and sustainable at the very first word go, but if it's implemented rigorously, continuously with a commitment, it can make a change. Thirdly, I have introduced to say we need to have intentional issues. These are basic at face value, but technicalities will have to be dealt with. If the municipality is owed, but the priority to pay is actually the cash flow for example, or the priority to pay is beers. Why can't we change the concept differently? That we can easily go to government and say, government, we want you and the municipality to work together under this provision of this act for us to recover our money. We want a deduction code. For all public servants that actually works or lives in the city of Windhoek, we want a deduction code for us to deduct that money from their salaries, and they can be able to pay us on a monthly basis. We don't have to be chasing people around. We don't want to be harassing people around. But that is going to bring in a natural passive revenue income for us on a monthly basis. Of course, other aspects that one can look at from a sustainability level is introducing new models of business, such as technology application. I spoke about a mobile app. The mobile app will not only be convenient for us, but if I will take an example of the mayor sitting here. He comes from Omalala, but he owns a property here. He owns a property in Omalala. In December, when he goes to Omalala, he will be spending money in Omalala. His property here will also be in a deficit. But he can be able to access this app and make his payment right there at Omalala without going to the bank, without going anywhere else or standing in a queue, but using his mobile phone. We can be able to look at partnering with MTC. MTC at the moment has got about 2.5 million residents. What is the opportunity of us looking at what are they doing best to intertwine with our systems that can be able to be sustainable? Of course, these are all at high level. These are all at governance level, but technicalities will have to come in to look at unpacking these issues so that it looks at the conventional way of how we collect, combined with new models that we can actually employ. I think for me, some of those are examples that will ensure financial infusion and financial sustainability for the city. I think business will have to be done differently.
Thank you. We only have 5 more minutes, and I would like to get an impression from members of the panel whether there is someone who wants to ask a question. I'll give you an opportunity now.
Okay.
Can we take Dr. Kudumo's question, and then you can round off with those questions because we are running out of time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Matyayi, for the presentation. The culture of change and sense of urgency. In the first 100 days, what exactly are we looking at as outputs of that? How will we judge you that you have begun to instill a culture of change and urgency?
Thank you very much. If I can just quickly touch base on the first question, and then I will get back to informal settlement, like you said. I want to give a very simple example. When we came into Otjiwarongo, under my leadership with my team, we looked at the challenges that we have. Otjiwarongo at the moment stands at 60% informal settlement, the whole population in Otjiwarongo. So what we looked at, we did a socioeconomic survey, we established the facts, and we put them there. And these facts has given us an understanding that there are about 1,200 people that comes into town. We can apply the same concept using statistics here. And what we've done is we invoked Section 91A of the Local Authorities Act to create a reception area for informal structures to be built on there. This has actually given us, within a period of 18 months, we were able to plan around about 3,500 plots as we speak right now, which are currently planned internally by only one individual, that is a GIS technician and a land use plan. And we can be able to then provide tenure security through leases and also give these individuals tenure security in terms of leasing the land on the basis of pre-allocation. That is one of the aspects that we can then look at, and gradually this area will develop and organically become gradually a serviced area as we go further. going forward. That can actually be done. If we could do it in the Chorongo, we can replicate the same within the city, knowing that there are very good resources. The outputs, in terms of the issue of the outputs, Doctor, definitely that is going to be very, very difficult to judge in the first 100 days. But what would actually make sense is understanding or inspiring a sense of knowing that everything else is due today in everybody. Inspiring the passion of employees understanding that their role has got a direct effect on the vision and the purpose of the organization within the institutional framework. However, there are areas or meters or metrics that can be used in doing that. One of it is customer service ratings that we can be able to apply, and probably after 100 days we can be able to do a survey and understand whether there has been any change, whatever. That will require us to actually invoke what you call a customer service charter that must define standards. If I am working in the city of Windhoek, I must respond to this query or that issue within this day or within these hours or within this golden time. I'm sure if everybody understood that whatever they do affects the individual out there, and if everybody internally understood that those that are outside who are residents of this town or this city actually are our bosses, we can be able to jump at every issue they actually have and solve it. The happier they are, the more money that will flow in, the better they can pay. And I'm sure that can then be measured up with different metrics like customer service survey, issues like culture surveys internally, and we can then be able to look at those areas and see whether we fared well or not, and where we've not fared well, how can we improve?
Okay.
I think that would be...
Mr. Matyayi, let's take one last question from a member of the panel, Martins Ausiku.
Thank you, moderator. Mr. Matyayi, you spoke about changing the culture into a performance-based culture. You know that with culture change, it doesn't happen overnight, yet you have to deliver results within the first 100 days. You have members who are disenchanted, some are disenfranchised, some are disengaged. Maybe just one, because of time, mention just one activity that you will do to ensure that some people who have been working for the city for over 20 years will come and tell you, but this is how we've done it for so many years. How will you get their buy-in to really change this culture into a performance-based one? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martins Ausiku. Of course, I think there are parameters within which the city have adopted already. And my understanding is that the city has a performance management system. And the performance management system is, I think, one of the best objective way of reviewing performance of each and every individual. Now, within that, there are reviews that are actually done on a quarterly basis. Or there are targets that are set. There are measures that are also defined and can be able to speak to the actions that we'll have to deal with. Of course, one of the aspects that I would look at is, as a CEO, I would like to engage on a regular basis with our staff members, be it on a monthly or be it on a quarterly basis, to understand what are their grievances, what are their challenges. But this will have to be addressed within the functional framework of the organizational established protocols. There are policies in place, there are procedures in place, and if we can be able to make each and every individual understand that we conform to the institutional framework, and within that we can be able to speak to one another at that level, I'm sure we will be able to achieve better results, because we are not going to speak about Kali is red or advocate is black or Mr. Mayumbelo is brown, but we are going to be speaking on objective aspects of the organization. So one of the issues is engagement through open discussions. Employee engagement also is one of the key issues, including wellness. You asked for one, but I think I would like to touch on some of those. Employee engagement and employee wellness. are a very critical issue. So there could be activities that we are going to be dealing with. Of course, HR will lead through that process. And wellness, I think one of the areas that we don't look at is the psychology of everyone that comes to work. It affects whatever happens at their home, in their life, and what have you. But the priority of us looking at the wellness of our staff members will have to be something that we will have to look at in order for us to really, give each and every individual an opportunity to come to work passionately and also feel that they are cared for at this organization. I believe these are some of the areas I think I can look at in terms of inspiring that process.
Thank you. Let's take a question from Mayor Amupanda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matyayi. You made quite very interesting revelation that I would intend to follow up. You indicate that our electricity charges in the city of Windhoek are the lowest in the whole country.
One of the lowest.
Yeah, so quite very interesting. And then you also mentioned that we have the lowest bypass.
No. It's the lowest losses.
Losses.
Yes.
Well, it's on the good side. Well, in the balance sheet have assets and the liabilities. But I can inform you that we have about 8,000 flagged accounts. Those are suspicious accounts that would think that people have bypassed the system. Actually, the cost of that is running into millions, probably even maybe 50 to 80 millions if you do the rough calculation. Now, maybe this comes, which is my first question, maybe this comes from your, as the chairperson of Senored. What will you do with regard to those flagged accounts? And this is not flagged by politicians, it's flagged by technical people who have put in a system to say there is no way you could maybe spend 250. Everyone who's at 250 less consumption, then they flag it. Another person just put $1 and then it's 251. So you're unable to see that account that is flagged. So what would you do to that? Because it's quite a very serious, and people are making a lot of money out of this thing. That's the first thing. The second thing is a generic question that I think every candidate should assist us. There is a culture survey that has been done at this place that speaks to the mindset and the psychology of everybody involved in the organization. And obviously, implicitly, what comes out is factionalism, where you have employees who manage somehow to have relations with councillors, and creates a serious instability in an organization. Not only that has been confirmed scientifically, it's something that we are also experiencing. The CEO, you are the full-time person, councillors are not full-time, employees are your subordinate. They somehow manage to interface and create a shadow structure by having a relationship with councillors. So these are your subordinate and these are your bosses. How would you handle that, such a situation?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. And these are quite technical aspects, technical questions. The question on electricity bypass, I think when I spoke to the lowest rate in terms of, or percentage in terms of network losses, I looked at the 2018-2019 report that is published on the website, and that's where I found that. And it already tells you that you've actually good infrastructure that is well maintained. Your industry standard would actually fare between 10%. If you are 10% in network losses, I think that is a fair loss. And if you are below that, then you're doing greatly well. But I think we still, what you have mentioned in terms of 8,000 flagged account, these are issues of behavioral aspect, which are very intricate in terms of navigating through how you can get there. But I think there are systematic processes where we can look at network that would probably trigger a sense of, I'm sure engineers would know better in electrical field. On the behavior side, we'll have to deal with whoever we can find within the confines of our established frameworks and policies and guidelines. If we find that there's this issue, you as a individual or a resident, you've actually just, bypassed the revenue of council and you are doing a criminal act at the end of the day. We will have to institute some investigation to establish the grounds and see how we can be able to deal with you as a resident. If there is a person that we can find as an individual who is part of that and is part of our organization, then I think maybe we can look at the brighter side and see what is it that is driving them to do that. If it's greed, then we will have to deal with the person individually. If it's something else, maybe we can deal with it in terms of its solution, but we need to understand why. I think for me, that would actually work best. Or maybe then look at the network side of the electricity. What type of network do we use and technology do we use that can be able to tell us all these things? Of course, these are across the board. It's everywhere. Even in Senored, in Nored, in Erongored, in Nempower, wherever, you are going to find all these challenges. But I'm sure if we can dig a little bit deeper and also apply our mind, we can be able to come to at least a solution. It will not vanish in one day, and neither will it vanish forever. But where there are human beings, there will always be very innovative ways of doing business differently. And on the issue of factionalism, I think there are established protocols within the organization. And as a CEO, I spoke about issues related to governance. If the accounts, first and foremost, you cannot be able to stop someone from having a relationship with anyone. That is very difficult to do. However, if a relationship is within the constitutional or it's within the institutional framework, then we need to understand the level and the different type of relationships that we currently have. If it's a councillor to employee, there is a defined code of conduct that we currently have for local authority councils that defines what type of relationship we need to have. So from your perspective as a councillor, you need to understand what relationship you must have with who at work or in the municipality. There are also areas where I think the issue of factionalism and relationship can be we just need to be very resolute about it. If there is anything that advances something that is different from our purpose and our role, then it should be done outside the confines of this organization, not here. Here we are here to do business, and we are here to deal with each other as professionals. We don't need to love each other in order to work with one another. So if we can be able to establish our protocols of going forward, as a governance person who understands corporate governance, who must have responsibility and have a conscience to understand that this is my role, you keep it at your role. Whatever is outside that role, let's deal with it at a different level. I think for me, that is an approach I would undertake, and that's a message I would send to the leadership as well as to the staff members to differentiate between the different roles we have and the type of relationship we must grow within the organization. Of course, it will exist, it will be there, but we need to manage it on a regular basis.